wait for your electric vehicle to charge. I mean, some people actually do charge on the weekends. Yeah, it's like they go fill up on the weekends and then they're good to go for the rest of the week. If that is your case, make sure that you subscribe to our channel, 2 Girls, 1 Electric Car. And that way, every time you charge up or you fill up in whichever sense, you can listen to our amazing podcast or watch some of our amazing videos, because we got a little bit of everything on here. Because it is Sunday Fun Day, we're going to talk about a subject that is a bit more philosophical, a bit more tactical. I know some of you like to use your hands. Let's clap for that. Yeah. You like to use your hands, I like to use my hands. I mean, most of the people who do have hands do love to use them. I mean, you can do many super awesome things with your hands. Grabbing things, pushing things, scratching things. But you can also, well, interact with your whole entire environment. It doesn't have to be just touching yourself, though I know some people do a lot of that on the weekends. You can also touch others and interact with your environment. Meaning, yes, cutting things, pushing things. Everything you can do with your hands is amazing. Sorry for those who actually don't have hands. This is too bad. But we're getting there with prosthetics and super amazing technology that is out there. I mean, that guy from Iron Man, he's actually been giving those to kids who were, what we call them, like amputees. So that is a thing. Walter Johnson just dropped in. Hey, Walter. If you are here, make sure that you log into your YouTube, yes, or Google account. That way, you can interact with us when we are live, and that is at 12 p.m. Vancouver time. If you don't know what Vancouver time is, just Google it. Super easy. It's on the west coast of Canada for those of you who did not listen in geography class because you were too busy using those hands. Salvadage 22S7 says allô. Allô. Ben toi tu dois parler français, sinon t'aurais pas dit allô. We are going to talk about screens and buttons. Yes. Now, there is a big difference between the two, and we want to get your opinion on which you prefer. Now, if we go back far, far, far away, I mean, screens were not a thing. So there was no other choices to be made. There was only buttons. I mean, yes, levers, buttons, call them however you want. But that being said, the screen is kind of recent in the history of time. If you call a rock a screen, that's very different. You should not. Walter Johnson says screen versus buttons. Cool talking about that. Yeah, it's gonna be cool. Hey Dave Frank, thank you very much for being here. Don't forget that you can share this video right here, right now. There's a little share arrow. Yeah, right underneath here. That will allow you to grab that URL and send it via text message, SMS if you prefer, to a friend, a family member, a coworker who is on vacation right now because it's Sunday. So come on, send this to your boss. Let's get talking about screens versus buttons. Now, Salvadage 20 says BlackBerry. Yeah, BlackBerry was kind of like the last button phone, wasn't it? It had buttons on it, a bit like a big keyboard. Still had a screen because you were able to see it and all that, and then became more tactile. So we're going to go all through the buttons and the screen of this world and how we can use them better. Plus, well, maybe some people are a bit nostalgic about buttons. Maybe you grew up and you did not have screens. If you are a millennial, you might have been within that realm of the two. Yeah, the buttons and the touch screens. But if you are before that, Generation X, well, definitely you've been prone to more buttons in your childhood than screens. And then if you are some Generation A, hey, what's up? Or Generation Z, well, you definitely have touched more screens or touch screens than you have buttons. I mean, now even when you go to the cash register, you can just prompt it with a tactile screen. No more buttons. When you go to the bank sometimes, I mean, where else can we have like screens? It's crazy. Like almost everywhere there's screens now. Buttons, are they dying or are they just not that useful? We'll see in this podcast, because I'm Piper and I'm here on the podcast called While You Wait for Your Electric Vehicle to Charge. We bring you amazing information about electric vehicles, future technologies in general, and well, we also entertain you because you have 1 hour and a half of entertainment that you can listen to in the playlist by the same name while you wait. So, what type of person are you? Are you more of a button person or a screen person? Let's do a little poll. Let's start this off with a poll. Poll. Do you prefer? And then exclamation, buttons or screens? Boom. Let's see what you gotta say about this. Oh, Hack of all trades, thanks for tuning in. So nice that you're there. Why some interfaces are screen versus other one buttons? Now let's talk about this. There's a few types of interface out there. And of course we're going to be talking mostly about interfaces in cars, okay? Why are we talking about interfaces in cars? If you hadn't noticed, this channel is named 2 Girls, 1 Electric Car. That's why we're going to do this. That being said, some interfaces rely more on screens, just like your iPhone. Yes, your iPhone is definitely a screen. It's a touchpad. Your iPad is a screen. I mean, a whole bunch of them are screens. But then you still have a keyboard. You still have a keyboard on your phone that acts like a button. Or here on my laptop that is right in front of me, well, there are actual touches. There's a keyboard, so that's more like a button. It's not just a screen that I can probe in that sense. No. So screens versus buttons. How's this poll doing? So far, do you prefer buttons or screen? 80% of people say they do prefer screens. 82% now. 82%. Okay. We're gonna leave this poll run for a little while, and then we'll see if you change your mind after watching or listening to this whole entire podcast. Because, well, in newer vehicles, there has been more screens in there than before. Of course, in the olden days, you would have buttons for everything. I mean, buttons for the radio, buttons for the climate, buttons for the whatever. It was all buttons. Even I have a really old oven, and on the oven, I mean, the timer's a button. You know, you kind of had to crank it and then go zzz, just like this, but different. Everything was button. There were no screens. It was like analog days. Do you remember the button days? But since we're in 2024, well, a lot of things have changed and evolved. Maybe for the best, maybe for the worst. And that's what we're going to be talking about in here. Now, the rise of the screens. Yes, if you're like me, you were kind of born and there was some buttons and some screens. I mean, TVs were there, smartphones were not there, but you could still have a few screens, let's say, for alarms, like alarm clocks. On your microwave, there would be a screen. Ovens starting having like digital screens, even watches. If you're an older person, let's say like older than me, well, you might have had a watch that had finally a digital screen. When was that? Like, you know, these Casio and all that. These had like digital screens.
In the 70s.
In the 70s, right? In the 70s. So that was kind of the first time that you could get all of these amazing things, like a calculator.
It was not touch screen.
It was it was not touch screen. That was just a screen. But and physical buttons to control that screen. So you need to get to that screen before you can get the touch screen. That's like way out there, like way after that. Now, the rise of the screens. Hey, Dave Frank, thanks for tuning in. What do you have in your environment right now that is a screen? And when we say screen, we're meaning touch screen. We're meaning a screen that can definitely replace a button. So you have your smartphone, for sure. I mean, some people have fridge. Yeah, their fridge has a screen on it, and you can touch things to control, well, pretty much their whole entire refrigerator is connected to the Wi-Fi. So to the internet in that sense. Then, of course, in your car, if you have a newer model car, you most certainly have a little screen on there. And this screen, is it controlled by your fingers when you touch on it, or is it controlled by the buttons on the side? That depends. On my Tesla Model X, I actually literally just click on the screen. It's a big iPad in that sense. Phone and truck. Okay, so the phone is definitely a touchscreen, but your truck, so your truck has a touchscreen too, Dave, that you can kind of push on and everything's good with that. So why do you think these touch screen have gained a lot of, let's say, have more utility in the world? Why are we seeing touch screens everywhere? Oh, in your Jeep. Okay, so Dave has a touch screen in his Jeep. Okay, that's good. And so far, our vote, like our little poll, we have 75% of people that prefer screens and 25% of people that prefer buttons. So this is gonna be interesting. So far, the screens are winning. I thought that maybe, just maybe, buttons were gonna do a comeback. You know, I thought buttons were gonna be more of a thing, but don't worry, don't go anywhere. We are definitely diving deeper into this amazing subject. Now, why do you think screens are on the rise? No, not because of AI and they're gonna world dominate. Not because of that. Maybe because they're really versatile. Like, you can actually put anything on a screen. You can put as many buttons as you want on the screen. It literally has infinite capabilities. Just like on your iPhone screen, if you go on your iPhone, just like I'm doing right now, and then you can have these little like tabs. I have one here that has social media on it, and then I can add as many pages as I want, and I can just add as many buttons, apps as I want, until of course the memory of my phone is like full. But if not, there's no limits to how many buttons you can put on a touch screen. You just need to change the page, and then it's a memory thing. Ooh, Michael Luders, hey, thanks for tuning in. So happy to see you all here. I'm Piper, and you're listening to While You Wait. On this podcast, we are talking about screen versus buttons. Which interface do you favor? Now, the thing is, it's also really customizable. If you are one of those people that enjoys screens in general, well, screens are customizable. You can change the button places. You don't need to leave the button there. Get where I'm getting to? Hack of all trades says screen are easy to clean, less moving parts. And Dave says, your teeth are bright. Must be the lighting. Thank you very much. Did not go whiten them recently, so must be the lighting. And then, well, for some people, I mean, having a screen is a bit more intuitive. What do I mean? Well, if you are one of these younger generation people, well, you were kind of born with screens more than buttons. So maybe for you it's more intuitive. You can just click wherever you want. So if you do customize your buttons on your iPhone, iPad, on your car, and well, you put them where you want them, just like me being a lefty. If the button is on the right hand side, but I would be more prone to use my left hand, that gets a bit more complicated. But if I can customize everything and have them where I want, well, it just makes it a lot easier for me to enjoy my buttons on my screen. And that's another really weird thing. So if you are for buttons or for screens, doesn't matter. I mean, your screen has buttons. Okay, they're not physical. You can't like grab them, push them, touch them. You just kind of click them in a very 2D type of way. But still, the button does not have a screen. Or maybe it could in a parallel universe somewhere. Okay, I'm noting this down. Yeah, let's give us some encouragement. Woohoo! Why? Because it is Sunday after all. Does your vehicle have screens or buttons? Tell me, okay, what year's your vehicle and what does it have in it? Does it have screen or button? Like I said, my Tesla Model X definitely has a screen. Now, it does have a few buttons. You want me to tell you which button it has? Yeah, I know you're waiting for this. Okay, so the glove compartment can only be open with a little button. It's a little button, so you click it. It's not even a handle, it's literally a little button. And it took me some time to figure it out. At first, I thought it was the hazard flasher, but no, it isn't. It's really a button for the glove compartment. Now, of course, all of the doors can be opened with levers and things like that, but if we're talking buttons, what are the buttons literally on my Tesla Model X's dashboard and everywhere else? Well, there is of course, these kind of levers, you know? So that would be for anything according to the windshield wipers, ooh, 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 when it rains. Then there's the cruise control, and the adaptive cruise control, so my self-drive, okay, which is not a full self-drive. That is a bit of the same lever as I have for the windshield washer and the wipers, bloop, 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 bloop. But it's right underneath it, and it's smaller. Now, that makes like two levers. It's kind of a button in that sense. And then on the other side, on the right-hand side, well, there is this little lever that is accommodated by a button on the top, and that is actually to put it in park, reverse, drive, neutral. So that acts a bit like a gear stick in that sense. But yes, I know what you're gonna say, Piper. It's a Model X, it's Tesla. There's no gears. I know there's no gears, but you still have sometimes to put in park, neutral. I mean, reverse. You're gonna need to push that thing. So these are more levers. Then, if I think really carefully, I don't think there's any other buttons. Like literally, the rest is just a huge screen in the middle, and that screen.
The hazard.
Oh yeah, the hazard button.
Because it's a lock.
Yeah. So the hazard button, that one is on the left-hand side of the screen. So there is the hazard button, but that's the only button there is. So I've got windshield wipers. I got my wipers. I got my cruise control, or like self-drive. I have my actually park neutral drive, let's call it like that. And then I have a hazard button and open my glove compartment button. That's it. So I kind of have 2 buttons, 3 levers in my Tesla Model X, and that's a model 2016. Meaning that right now, I think on the newer model Teslas, there's probably even less button. And then everything else you can control on this huge screen. I mean, everything. Suspension, you can see tire pressure in your dashboard, you can see, GPS, connect your phone, entertainment like karaoke. You can see the climate, so you can actually control climate with this screen, this huge screen. Hey, Max Power, thanks for tuning in. Okay, we are Sunday, and today is Fun Day, meaning this is weekend edition of While You Wait, the podcast that entertains you and talks about screen and buttons for today. We are going all the way in to the screen and buttons. Now, how about to turn the car on? Ooh, that's a good one. Yes, so some vehicles have these these key fobs, but you still need to have the key fob with you when you enter the car, and then there's an on-off button. Now, my Chevy Volt had an on-off button, so you need to usually press the brake pedal really hard, and then you need to press on, like start.
Why?
But why? Exactly, but why? Because you're already there with the key in the car. So my Tesla Model X actually is completely different. As soon as it detects that the fob, the key, is in the vehicle, it just opens the vehicle up. There's no on and off button. It's already on. The vehicle is on. And then if you stay too long in it, you need to, of course, press the brake pedal super hard, and then you put the vehicle in drive, and then that's gonna kind of start it. But it's not gonna start it. It's already started. It's just that now you're gonna be able to roll with it. a bit like you would with any type of car keys. You would go 1 to start it, but you would stay in park. Yeah. And
remember the Volt turned it off when we were rolling. It turned off.
Oh yeah, that's true. So with the Chevy Volt, if you press the off button when you were rolling, like on the highway, it would turn it off. So it had the fob in the car, but if you pressed it, it would literally turn it off. A bit exactly like if you had your car key and you would just turn it off on the highway.
Why
In that sense, why? This is so dumb. It's so dumb. So that being said, I mean, the way that you interact with the car depends. So there's fobs, there's an application, or there's a card. I've seen that with Teslas, and even newer model cars usually now have just this fob, and there's some have the on and off button, and some you just get in the car and it opens. That's it. There's nothing to do. No, like, oh, I'm on the battery, and then if I turn more, I open the car. Like I literally open the engine. Nothing like that. And then Max Power asks, are the pedals buttons? I mean, I don't think there are buttons because they kind of accelerate in that way. So they don't count as buttons because first things first, unless you have no arms, but you're using them with your feet. So that's something to be said. And so let's not count the pedals as buttons because most vehicles have pedals, right? How can you control the vehicle if you don't have pedals? Unless it's an AI. Super cool! Okay, adaptability and flexibility. Meaning that buttons are really, really, really adaptable and flexible. What do I mean by that? Well, because the buttons on the screen would be way better than the buttons on, let's say, your dash or your wherever you are in your car, okay? Now, what happens when you have a screen versus when you have buttons? When you have a screen, you can literally put your buttons wherever you want. I mean, okay, because the screen is gonna act as where your buttons are gonna be placed, and then you can place them wherever. But if you do have real life buttons, you're gonna need to choose where they go, and then you have to mechanically install or deinstall them. You can't just decide, oh, okay, I'm gonna switch my buttons right now. I'm gonna put this button somewhere else. You need to be a mechanic. You're gonna need to do some wiring and like some real mechanical things. So with the actual screen, you can change the function and the layout whenever you want. I mean, you can literally do whatever you want whenever you want. If you don't like that layout, you can customize it, you can switch it, swap it, paste it, copy it. It doesn't matter. That's why screens are so amazing for that feature. The fact that they're really flexible and really adaptive. If you have more comments, make sure that you do leave a comment because this podcast is recorded live in Vancouver, British Columbia. It starts at 12 p.m. Vancouver hour and it ends 1 hour and a half later, which gives you plenty enough time to charge. That's why it's called While You Wait to Charge Your Electric Vehicle. Now, the other thing you need to think about is that, well, okay, what do I have here? Valuable in dynamic environment. Yes, meaning that if ever you, as a driver, you prefer to have your buttons a certain way. Yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe you're left-handed like me. Or maybe you just prefer this type of accessibility. A bit like on your iPhone or on any of your, touchscreen devices. Maybe you want your camera to be there. Maybe you want your CarPlay to be there. Maybe you actually call people a lot more than you use the internet. So you want that feature, so that call button to be really close to you so that you can literally not have your phone in your hand while you're driving, because that's illegal. So you're gonna place that call button really close to you. That way, you're never doing illegal things, for one. And also, it's gonna be more accessible and easy for you to access it. I mean, how crazy is that? It's so easy to join the screen revolution. Now, also, you can definitely make it do various things. Like a screen is fully customizable. So tell me a little bit about your screens and the way that you use them. Because this is a podcast and it is interactive, I want to know more about you. So what do you use your screen for? In your car, literally. How do you do it? Because Hack of All Trades says screens are easier to clean, less moving parts. He said that earlier. It's true. A screen is just easy to clean. It's just like 2D surface. It's not 3D. It takes the same amount of space and then you do whatever you want with it. You press it, customize it, all of that. So Dave Frank says right thumb and right index finger. So that means you grow it, you lower it, all of that thing. Well, that kind of works. I feel like you can definitely do all of that. So the adaptability of a screen is really one of its hard selling points.
Less complex part also to build. So it's going to be more economical for cars.
Exactly. Yeah, less complex to build in a vehicle. You just put a screen there and so that takes less time in that sense, maybe. And then you don't need to kind of figure out where everything goes. It's a bit like design, you don't need to design everything. Yeah, no buttons, no design. It's not like, oh, do I need the button here because those people are going to do here. Again, if you had a call button in your car, well, maybe you will never use the call button because you're just not a person who calls people. So you would rather have the heat there because you're a really cold person and you need the heat button close to you. But that would mean that every time you have to go further away to get to that button, whereas where a screen would allow you to just have that really, really easy and quick. Bam! Right there. It's totally customizable in that super cool way. Dun, 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 dun. Come on, invite your friends. It's Sunday Fun Day. What else have you got to do? Yeah? Just click that share button and invite one person so we can have even more fun talking about buttons. You can also push my buttons or your buttons by sparking a debate. Let's do this. Okay. We have here visual feedback. This is another interesting point. So visual feedback would be where, well, okay, if we're talking visual feedback, we're talking visual, meaning that if you're blind, you shouldn't drive anyways. That being said, that is probably why they have screen in cars now, because it's okay to have a screen in a car. You are already driving, you can see the road, you have to see the road, you have mirrors, you have cameras now, we have all of these extra sensors. So the screen allows you, well, to see everything. So you can see all of these features. They're right there. Some of you are going to be like, yeah, Piper, but buttons do that too. Yeah, but the thing with the buttons is that, well, the immediate feedback you get from a button is completely different. You know, sometimes you're like, did I crank the button to 11 or is it at 6? Because there's a little dot on it or there's a little something. So you're never really sure. Just like my oven, it has a timer and then I need to like probe it back to put the timer on, but then it has to be aligned with the very little line. It's a really old oven, like 30 years old. And then, well, you just take it, but are you sure you're on the 5 or maybe you're on the 6-minute count? You're not sure. A button sometimes is a bit less precise in that way. Whereas if you have a screen and you put your finger on the screen, and then you slide your finger across, well, you can have an actual visual percentage or a number or a low high that indicates what your finger is doing on the screen. Let's take the example of temperature. So you want to put the heat at 27. Yeah, I know. You're like, well, this is so hot, Piper. It is hot. I like my car to be hot. And after that, well, right now you're at 25. So maybe 25 is good. But how you know you're at 27 if it's a button? I mean, how do you know? Unless this button is connected to a screen interface and then you would turn the button and see that it goes to 27. But let's just grab that for now and keep the screen size. Meaning I would go with my finger on the screen and bam, it would say 27. Imagine that. That would be like instant visual feedback, and that would make it so that me as the user of the screen, I would really, really know what's happening. I would really have all this control. Now, Max Power says FSD or a full self-drive, who will know you are blind? I mean, does the full self-drive, is it gonna know if you're blind? I have no idea. I mean, they should know if you're blind because full self-drive right now, you're not supposed to really drive it if you can't drive or if you're impaired. And I feel like being blind is totally an impairment in that way. But later on, when it's really self-driving cars, like they're autonomous self-driving cars, then anybody's gonna be able to go into them. I mean, children, because it's gonna drive itself. So you don't even need an actual driver to assist with the driving if something happens. So yes, blind people are gonna be like taking the taxi. This is gonna be great. I mean, there's not that many blind people out there, but still they can already take the taxi, but now they're gonna be able to buy their own car and take their taxi car. Okay, visual feedback on the screen.
And they're going to be able to have a new job.
An
Driver.
Uber driver. Yeah, they're gonna be able to be Uber drivers, the blind people out there. Okay, so the visual feedback that you get from a screen is really like immediate. And then, well, a screen allows for a lot more, well, you know, a lot more things, like little animations that you can see, so you know if it's working. Then also, well, color changes, meaning that if it's cold, it's kind of, you know, it's blue, and if it's hot,
Colorblind.
yeah, it would be great for the colorblind people. They could change the color of the screen to really see things like in the way that they can. I mean, it's a screen, so you can customize it however you want. François, call us. And then, well, the fact that a screen is interactive, there's something that a button is a lot less of. So interactive ability makes it, well, easier for the user to communicate with it, but also easier for the user, like the person pressing that screen, to know if what they did actually worked or what is happening. Kind of the behind the scene is just showcased to you on a screen. Do you agree with this? If you don't, let's fight. If you're a button person, like about 23% of our live audience right now, tell us. Oh, Max Power says button are cheaper, break faster. Interesting. Okay. Well,
Cheaper than a screen.
I don't think.
Many buttons and all that.
Well, actually, I have this argument at the end of this podcast, so make sure that you stay there for our buttons cheaper and break faster than screens. So we're gonna get back to that a bit later. But thank you for opening that right up, Max Power. Hack of all trades says driver eye tracking already exists on some European cars. Oh, meaning
Like the Apple Vision?
a bit like the Apple Vision. Well, okay, so it's like, is it like? So it would be like they know if you're actually paying attention to the road. So where are you looking at? Which makes sense because even Tesla with FSD has a camera on you, like on the driver, to see what are you doing. So it can definitely track your eyes and see if you're sleeping, if you're looking at your girlfriend, or if anything else is happening. Max Power says screens are expensive to replace if they break. Well, screens are getting cheaper because they're everywhere now. I mean, okay, maybe an Apple screen would be different. One button, again, that depends. When you break the screen, it's like breaking all of your buttons at the same time. So it's not just like one button. Now, you remember these old screens when you had like one pixel that did not work? But it's a bit different now. Most screens don't like necessarily break one pixel. It's gonna be like the whole thing that explodes. But we will get back to like the price of buttons versus screens a little bit later in this podcast. So make sure that you wait for it because this is called While You Wait, the podcast that entertains and brings you information or philosophical discussions about buttons and screens. Screen protectors are cheap. That's from Electric Brian. I mean, do you have a screen protector on your Tesla? Because that's kind of weird. I don't have a screen protector on my Tesla. I just have like the screen, and I didn't put I don't even have a screen protector on my iPhone. I don't do that. Do people put screen protectors on their car screens? Like I've never even seen that. It's not like you go to the dealership and they tell you, do you want to add a screen protector?
Never even thought about it.
No, maybe if you have kids, you think about it.
Oh, yeah.
But since if you don't have kids or anything, I don't see why you would need a screen
Are you
protector.
gonna drop your car and it's gonna break?
Yeah.
That's a good.
That's an interesting feedback. Yep, I do. Helps when loading things in the car. So you have a screen protector.
Wow.
What do you put that goes on the screen of your Tesla? Like literally, you put like wood or something in the middle of the Tesla? Because I've done that already. Yeah, and that was dangerous. I should have I did it. If you have really long moving parts, well, of course it could hit the screen and break it. But that's why I put in the windshield. That way it would just break the windshield. Okay, but where did you get a screen protector for your Tesla? I mean, it's such an odd type of. Do they sell that in China? Like they sell everything, right? They sell everything. This is so interesting. Thank you, Brian. So we are discussing screens versus buttons. Who is winning right now in the screen versus button technology? Button were an older technology, meaning they were the first things that arrived. We didn't have screens back in the day, so of course we used buttons. But now that we have screens and they're cheaper to do and that they can be fully customizable and input way more information in a screen than you could ever on a dashboard with a whole bunch of buttons. Well, because you need that real estate for the buttons. Well, that being said, they are kind of gaining a lot of territory. The screens. Amazon, of course, or Electric Brian bought a screen Wow. And so how's that called? A screen protector for his Tesla off of Amazon. So if you are in the looking for that, please go on Amazon and have fun. Let's just Google this. Now, screens do convey a lot more information than buttons. And that's because, well, you can see them, literally, and they can pop up anything you want. So a button is just a button. It goes right, left, and then you can click on it. It's a thing. It's a thing. Wow, it's like buying an insurance. So interesting. There's none for our Model X? No, it's for the newer models of Tesla? So, okay, that Model 3, Model Y. Okay. It's a thing. It's a thing. Now, the screens do, again, convey more information than buttons. They give you real-time feedback because as soon as you touch, you can see, sometimes with addition of numbers, colors, animations, and all of that. And, well, that makes it very user-friendly. That means that you don't necessarily need to know what the button does. It just kind of tells you more information, so you get to it faster in that sense. Okay, let's talk about space efficiency. Thank you for everybody who's there right now. We do appreciate all of your support and your comments. Make sure that you come and check us out on Patreon. Yeah, we do have a Patreon. I just dropped the comment in the comment, the link right down there. You can support us for $2.97 USD on patreon.com/2girls1electric-car. We post a whole bunch of behind the scenes over there, so exclusive content that you will not see anywhere else. We'll be waiting for you on Patreon right here, right now, or right after this actual podcast. Here we go. Space efficiency. Now, the thing is, a screen has literally multiple things it can do. Like, it can have menus, like underneath menus, underneath menus. You can add. It's a button in a button. A screen is the inception of buttons, people. That's what it is. It can have multiple functions. It can control anything. Like your button usually would control one thing. Okay, then you could do like Command Shift and then it controls another thing, but that becomes way too complicated. Most vehicles don't have this kind of second command for buttons. So your button does that one button thing. But if you have your screen, it does more than one thing. It can control everything in your car. Again, I can raise my suspension, I can open the lights, dim the lights, I can even make sure that my car is not going over 120 kilometers per hour. Like, I can literally do that. I can put in valet mode. Like, the screen usually, of course, comes with, let's say, some software features, which a button could and can, but less of. In that sense. Now, you can have all of these into that single interface. So your screen becomes this kind of like brain, this kind of central brain for your whole entire car. Max Power says a screen may have infinite amount of buttons. Exactly. Why wouldn't you want that? Why wouldn't you want infinite possibilities?
Is there an infinite amount of things you can do with a car?
Is there an infinite amount of things you can do with a car? I think yes. I think you could do like a lot more with a car. You could order Uber Eats while you're in the car. I mean, it has internet. That's what this screen allows you. The screen is internet, but it also is raise my suspension, and it also is your GPS, and it also is connected to your phone to receive texts or do phone calls, and it also allows you to lock and unlock your car. I mean, the screen does all of that. You can use the screen to tap the like button on this video. And you should. Or else bad electrical karma would hit you. And you will not be able to charge next time you want to charge one of your devices. I'm telling you. So make sure that you like this video. This is also a podcast. If you prefer to just listen, that is all good with us. We have a playlist that's called While You Wait. And you can grab it. All of the episodes that we've ever done are in this playlist. Go check out the subject that entices you the most and listen to it. Yes.
And we are at 500 subscribers.
Oh, yes, that is true. Guess what happened yesterday? We finally got 500 subs. We finally got 500 subscribers. So we are over the 500 subscriber mark. Thank you very much to everybody who has already subscribed to the channel. If you are not yet subscribed, please do subscribe because we're bringing you more awesome content. And well, what is left to do to be at the first threshold of monetization of YouTube is to get to that 3,000 hours of watch time. Now, these 3,000 hours of watch time are calculated by you watching our videos and podcasts on YouTube. Now, the thing is, of course, our short videos are super cool and our community posts that are pictures are very cool as well, but these do not count. The short videos do not count in that 3,000 hours. So think about it if you really want to support the channel, to watch our videos, listen to them, and most importantly, when you're done watching, always reshare. Maybe, just maybe, one of the awesome things we discuss in our podcast or videos will entertain or educate some of your friends, family, co-workers, or I don't know, somebody you meet in the street and you're like, hey, you have a Tesla? I know this super cool channel. It's called Two Girls, One Electric Car. And they talk about things related to electric vehicles. So if ever you want to check them out, that might be right in your electrical branch. That being said, congratulations to us and thank you to everybody. We will keep you informed on our monetization progress on YouTube. For now, we are doing these live podcasts at 12 p.m. Vancouver time every single day. So make sure that you're there if you are waiting for something or someone. That's why it's called While You Wait. Now, a screen. Let's get back to the screen. A screen versus a button. So a screen will definitely save you a lot more physical space. There's something on my teeth. Oh my God, there's lipstick. Blah, blah, blah. If you're not like watching this, you're just seeing, you're just listening. I'm wearing red lipstick. That's what's happening. Okay. Now, yes, real estate. Let's talk about button space. Button space. So when you have all of these these buttons, they take up all that space. Like we said, you can't move them, which is too bad. But when you have a screen, all these buttons are all inside this one big button. And then, well, that declutters a lot. That's why the dashboard on a Tesla is so big. I mean, and so spacious, and you have all this space because you don't need to put any buttons there. You just have this one screen. Okay, and maybe the hazard button and one to open your glove compartment, but that's pretty much it. All the rest of this space can be used for something else. And if you think the Tesla screen is too big, well, that just depends on how you use it. Maybe it could be smaller later, but since all of your buttons are on there, I think that is still pretty small compared to older cars that had all of these buttons on them. The radio, the heat, I mean, everything was on there. So the screen is not that big compared to all of these buttons everywhere. Now, physical buttons needed to have really dedicated places, meaning that, well, if you are the driver, you needed to access some of these buttons faster than other buttons. So they really had to put buttons at the right spot, a bit like the hazard button needs to be really close to the driver. You don't want the co-pilot to activate it if you don't have a co-pilot. This is going to be very difficult. It's a lot to be mechanical.
I heard that, but
you heard that it's a lot to be mechanical. Sai's not here on Sundays to fact check proof, but you can check it out, if you want to. But that would make sense that you need easy access to that hazard button, because on a screen sometimes you don't necessarily have easy access. So a screen is menus usually. So you would have these easy access button that you can program and have there really close by.
Explain to me like I'm 5. Imagine those machines that cut your hand if you put and you need to stop it.
Yeah.
You need a mechanical thing. If there's a menu there or something.
Exactly. The menu would be too long. Yeah. The menu would be too long when in a crisis. That's why some buttons need to stay buttons, because you need to just press it as fast as possible. You don't have time to go to a customizable menu or in a drop-down menu. It would be too long. Plus, well, you don't want people to customize the hazard button in a sub-menu. that would be really bad. That would be really bad. So you need to press that button. You need to have it there. Plus, physical buttons, well, they have a limited numbers of function that they can do. Usually a button does that one thing. If it's the climate button, then it does the climate. You can't turn on the radio with the climate button. You can't do that. Meaning that this button is just there for this one purpose, whereas the screen is there for all of the purposes. It doesn't really matter. Yes.
And also, if you got few buttons and you can assign it with a screen what they do, just like a camera.
Yes, some people have that. So
You
that's
don't need a button for everyone. I'm never using climate.
no. Some people don't use climate, or some people don't use AC for some reason, and they get it. That being said, you could have a few buttons that can be assigned, like quick keys, kinda, to the screen and to these non-physical buttons, so that you could have quick access. That way, well, that would make it a bit more cool to kind of touch, but at the same time, you wouldn't have to go in the drop-down menu or in the menu to get that going, huh?
Music volume.
Music volume.
If you don't listen to music, there's a button there for no.
Exactly. So that's the problem with buttons. If you don't listen to music, well, the button is there for nothing and it's taking up all this space for no reason. Whereas a screen is not taking up more space or more power because there's more button in it. If you don't click it, it just doesn't activate. It doesn't do anything. That being said, screens are more space efficient than buttons, just in general, just like that. What do you think? Drop a comment. Come on. This is interaction. We want to have a debate about screens versus buttons. Let's move on to customization and personalization. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, so customization and personalization. Yeah, I make my own music with my voice. Okay, with a screen, you can, yes, customize your interface. What do we mean by customize your interface? Well, you tell me. What can you do with your screen? Dave Frank says, Piper, how much money did you receive from me? Wow, I haven't counted it all, but a lot. Thank you, Dave. You're a very generous supporter of me in general. Yeah, especially on YouTube. So you can't give money right now on this channel at the time of this recording because we're not yet monetized. But don't worry, you can also support us on our Patreon. Bam! That's the easiest way to support us to make more awesome videos. Super easy. Customization and personalization. So your actual screen can be customized. You can put your icons wherever you want. You can even change the theme. You know, some people actually prefer to have, let's say, a little bit of a, oh, I want this to look like this, or I want this to look like this. Maybe you want a spring theme. I don't know. Maybe you want the brightness to be dimmer because you're just that kind of person that likes a chill screen. That'd be better for you. I don't know. Then you can adjust every setting, and that is true. With a screen, you could do everything in there. So all of the settings can be adjusted manually. There's no problem. There's no like a button, oh, I don't like how this button feels. Well, usually with the screen, there's none of that. You can just adjust it as you go. And yes, in the Tesla Model X, my Tesla, there is a little customization bar at the bottom, and you can put, well, the things you want to have access to as fast as possible down there. Then everything that is related to the car, well, it has kind of this big menu, and then you click on everything, and everything is there. So it's only like 2 clicks to get to that information. It's not much more than that. So you click on the home, then you have everything there, and then all on the left side are the, well, you know, charging, then you would have lights, you would have suspension, and then once you click that, it opens. So there's not like 2 sub-menus, there's only one there. Which is way easier, like way easier to do. Oh, okay. And well, when you adjust everything on your very own screen, it makes it more personalized, meaning that you feel that the screen is really yours. Because if you go in somebody else's Tesla or in somebody else's car, I mean, it's not going to have the same screen as you. So this type of personification really adds to your driving experience. It makes it so that, oh, you get in your car and you know your buttons are there and these are your settings, and that's the way you want it. So that's actually not designed by the car company. That is, this is my design. And that makes it really more, well, engaging for the driver or even the passenger. That makes it so you're like, hey, I literally designed the screen on my Tesla. Some people like that. Some people enjoy personification or customization, or you could also call it bespoke in that sense. So tell me, do you like to use your buttons when you get a phone, when you get a car? do you just leave it all like that? Or the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go through all these menus, all these buttons, and you're going to change it up for it to accommodate your very own liking, your personal preferences. Again, if you're a person that I like to call people, well, you'll have this call button really close instead of having maybe the YouTube button really close, or well, the text message button, because you shouldn't text and drive. You should not. This is not a thing, people. We're in 2024. If you're still doing this, I mean, get a newer vehicle. Your car actually reads messages to you now, and you can send messages through your car. So you don't want to do that. This is way too dangerous. Why would you think about doing that? Just don't. Just don't. I'm Piper, and you're listening to While You Wait, the podcast that brings you amazing debates, information about electric vehicles, and, well, future topics. Yes, like screens versus buttons. Screens have been making it big in 2024, but buttons have kind of been, not that big right now. So we're talking about how screens are taking much more place, especially in our vehicles, because this channel is called Two Girls, One Electric Car. Accessibility and inclusivity. Yeah, for those of you who don't have arms, we're talking about you right now. Are you ready for this? Yeah. Accessibility and inclusivity. I mean, some people like to talk about this. Some people are like, accessible and all of that. Like we were saying. So by having a screen there, usually screens are more technologically advanced. So you have all of these other features. You literally have all of these other features on your screen. Because, well, it's a software. It's literally a software. Max Power says, yes, customize the screen. Hack of all trades says, AIs don't have belly buttons. Of course, that makes sense because they don't give in birth to. A belly button is only there because of the umbilical cord. So meaning that you were fed by your mother. Thank you very much, Hack of all trades. We'll see if the next cars have belly buttons or not. In a future world. Text-to-speech, meaning that, yes, if you have one of these newer model vehicles, gas or electric or hybrid, well, they have this software in them that allows you to simplify your life. All of this technology is there, so you are less dumb. And you actually don't get into accidents. Meaning that if you do connect CarPlay, well, yes, your text messages, your voice call, all of that are going to go through your car, so you don't have to literally grab that phone. You can just interact with the car, and that way, well, you will, let's say, lose less brain cells or brain power and still be able to drive.
And maybe it will not tell you your message if it's not a good
time. Yeah.
They are aware.
It could choose for you. Yeah. So maybe the AI in the car could not tell you that message you just got because, well, you are in a kind of tight situation right now, trying to, get out of traffic or something like that.
It's a message from, let's say, your wife or your mistress and say, like, maybe it's not a good time because he's going to know that you're not with your wife.
Yeah. Maybe if you receive a message for your mistress and then, well, he knows that you're with your wife in the car, it's not going to send it to you. So that would be the greatest implementation of AI, screens, and everything else in your actual vehicle.
Wow.
So text-to-speech, or, well, more like speech-to-text in that sense, makes it cool. Some people can talk to their cars, meaning that even having a screen or buttons is going to be probably obsolete very soon because you're going to be able to talk to the car. And not even that, but if we go to the full FSD or full self-drive, where you're not literally driving, well, there's only a few things you're going to want to control, and that might be more entertainment, so the radio, anything that plays, or, well, the climate, having a really nice, cozy environment for you. But the rest of the car is going to take care of itself. It's going to raise the suspension, lower the suspension, put the fog lights, all of that they're going to do on their own. That's the whole point of having full self-drive, is for the car to do it all, just like if you were driving. Now, the cool thing is with screens too is that if you are getting older, or if you are really like, you don't see nothing because you were born like that, but you can still see enough to drive, well, it has magnification abilities. So you can control how big the screen is, or more like the buttons and the text in the screen, for them to be bigger or smaller. So if you are a person that likes more brightness because you're like that, or you like it dimmer, you can control all of these things for you to have a better experience with the actual UI, I guess, the user interface. You can do all of that. So that makes it more customizable, but it also makes it more user-friendly for your type of view. Because we're not all the same. Some people like to be underneath like really big neons, and some other people like underneath lights. It depends on the type of person you are. Yeah! Come on, wake up! It is Sunday, fun day, and we're talking about screens versus button, the interface debate. If you are one of these kids that was kind of born in the 60s, well, of course, you played with a lot of buttons when you were younger. And then came the screens. And now all of the buttons are inside the screens. Yeah. So you can touch them, but you can't really feel them. Oh, how crazy is this? A bit like our grandparents who were like, yeah, I can call somebody, but I still need like some type of rope or wire. And now you can call people out of thin air. That's how fast we have evolved, people. And this is so cool.
I would like to have haptic.
Yeah, gesture control. So I was getting to that. Yeah, gesture control. So meaning if you actually have, well, if you have all of these, like this screen and all of that, maybe some of the gestures that you use can control differently. Yeah, differently the buttons. Because you have all of this space that is tactile. So you can touch anywhere, everywhere. A bit like on an iPad or even on a touchpad, you take 3 fingers, it does something different. You take 2 fingers, it does something different. It's going to do something different to your girlfriend too. So when you're there, you can have this kind of different experience with the screen. It just allows for more. It allows to implement a lot more in this one thing than any button would ever do. Okay, let's get to, well, another really interesting point, and that is kind of like counterpoints, in a way, like counterpoint, things that are not so great about a screen. And I know some of you are gonna have a lot of that because Max Power started talking about that a few minutes ago. So feedback, that's the thing. A button kind of gives you feedback, non-visual feedback, but when you turn a button, you have this like 3D sensation. You feel it. It's tactical, it's round or square, you touch it and that works. A screen, unless it has haptic feedback, like your phone can have that, it can have sound and it can also vibrate a little bit. The iPhones do that. Now, I don't know for the Androids because I'm not an Android person, people. But having this tactical feedback can be really amazing. But that doesn't mean it's not implementable in a screen. A screen could give you all of this feedback. It could vibrate, it could do sound. And we're talking about things that are not visual, okay? So sound would be auditive, vibration would be tactical. Now, that means that the screen could do that. They would just need to upgrade the screen to something a bit, I guess, that would cost a little bit more. So some people do believe that buttons would be more satisfying and reassuring. Because you're touching the button, you're literally knowing where it's going and how it's going. Maybe because we've used it for longer, but also just because a button is more of a 3D object than a screen. So what do you feel? Do you feel like buttons are more reassuring? Is that something that you feel? You feel like when you turn a button, you kind of know where the button is at, more than if you just have your finger on the screen and you're scrolling in that way? Yeah, I know. It's quite an interesting thing. Piper, did you use your Apple in New York? Do you know, like the big Apple? Of course, I used all my Apple devices when I was in New York. I use all my Apple devices everywhere I go because, well, I work all the time. So Apple and me are kind of fusion together. That's everything we do together. Just like me and this podcast. Same. Okay, let's get to Max Power's actual debate. Durability and reliability, that word. Okay, Max is saying, not all screens are that good. Sometimes I press a button on the screen and I don't know if it worked. I have to press it again. It's true, some screens are like, you need to press a few times. It feels like the feedback, especially in airplanes. Have you ever been in airplanes and they have these screens in them?
You know those little machine that when you pay.
Oh yeah, the little machine when you pay. Yeah.
Bad touchscreen.
It's a bad touchscreen. That happens. That happens. So when you press it, sometimes it just doesn't do anything, and then it's a screen, so it doesn't give you real feedback. When you turn the button and the music is not turning up, you know right away the button is broken. Like, you know, it's like, okay, I turned the volume button up and the music is not coming up, so you know it. But when you actually go down, like on a screen or up on a screen, well, you're not sure where you're at sometimes, yes. And then Pita the Foss says, where is the two girls? Well, I'm one girl. The other girl is my personal assistant, and she's not working on weekends. So that means that because we are Sunday right now at the time of this recording, well, she's gonna be there on Monday. So the other girl is on, I guess, weekend vacation. How do you call that in English? It's like yeah, that word. So Max, yeah, it's true that some screens they don't tell you, they don't give you that feedback. They have the possibility to give you a lot more feedback if you press them and they work. They can like illuminate, like, you know, on X, yeah, the social media, you press the little heart and then ooh, it's like a whole big thing happens. It is just like hearts everywhere and all that. So that makes a lot of sense. I mean, that works very well for a visual feedback. And then yeah, there's even a sound and there's even an haptic. So you could have all of that, but that's when they work. So if it doesn't work, you really have no feedback on the screen. Whereas a button, you know how far you turned it. So you would have this feedback in that sense. But Max also said that buttons kind of break faster and are cheaper in general. So let's get more into that. I mean, from what I've read, and I find it very interesting, buttons are better in really harsh environments or high-stress environments, okay? Because imagine this. Imagine you are, well, working in a shop, like a shop with metal and all these things, and a bit like Electric Brian said, I mean, he put a screen protector on his Tesla screen because he was carrying things and working with things, so that made it so he didn't want to break the screen. Now, if you're working in a shop, in a garage, I mean, anything like that would make it so that you get really dirty and that there's a lot of machinery, well, buttons might be a bit more durable in that sense. I mean, a screen is a screen. Not all screens are literally like glass, but still it's going to be some type of glass. We're not yet maybe at the whole holographic type of screen that you can control in the air. So because it's so fragile, the screen would be so fragile in that way, well, implication where you would be outdoors or you would be in a shop, well, it would maybe be better to just have big, robust buttons. Buttons you can push, pull, I mean, splash water on and all of these things. Because some screens have been known to be not that waterproof. I mean, Apple is kind of doing a good job with their screens.
We swim with it.
Yeah, you can swim with your iPhone now. It can go in water. I mean, the Apple Watch Ultra can literally go in water. I've taken it with me in water all the time. So that's something to consider about buttons that would make them better in these types of environments. If you are like outside, so what I have here is buttons are less prone to damage, like impact, moisture, wear and tear, so ideal for outdoors and industrial machinery. And what do we say by high stress environment? Well, when you're in a car, unless you're like a road rage type of person, are you that person? Please don't be that person. Well, you would just kind of click on the button to change the heat. I don't think that you would kind of road rage on that button for the heat. It's not a very high stress environment. You're there in your car, you're going to work, you're on a road trip, you click the buttons and it's pretty chill. Plus the buttons on your screen or the screen is literally inside of your car, a controlled environment. And if you did not know this about Tesla actually controls the climate of your car. So even when it's parked, unless it's underneath 20% battery, well, it's going to adjust the temperature of the inside of the vehicle to your set temperature. Usually, like, if it gets over, for me, 40 degrees Celsius, it's going to lower it down. So it doesn't want to overheat the car. Or freeze in that way, but mostly overheat. So that's something we need to consider about buttons. Buttons might not be the future, but they still have some pretty cool implementations. I mean, if
the car's gonna read your mind, you will not need
That is true. When the car is gonna read your mind, you will not need buttons. You'll just be like connected to Neuralink to your Tesla. We told you, Elon Musk has a plan. Your Neuralink is gonna like definitely allow you to control your Tesla, and then it's gonna send you to space to Mars. USB-C?
Oh, it's gonna be
To recharge your Neuralink
no,
implant?
No, just to connect.
Oh, just to connect.
No weird connector.
No weird connector.
Need adapter.
Yeah. Oh yeah, an adapter would be heavy, huh? Very heavy. No dongle. We don't want dongles. Just want like one cable to rule them all. Now, Max Power says button will take more abuse, but I think they break more often. Well, again, if you abuse them more, there's a whole bunch of way that they're gonna just like break down more. What do you mean by abuse?
Use your button. Wow.
This is interesting. Well, okay, so buttons are usually put into places right here, right now in 2024, where yes, they take more abuse. But there are better buttons. But buttons are cheaper to replace. Yeah, because usually you just need to replace that one button, not all of the buttons that you have on the device. The thing is, a screen is all of your buttons all in one thing. So if it breaks, you need to replace the screen, but that's worth all of your buttons in that sense. And then Michael Rydken says, imagine buttons or screen on your headphones. Well, there's already kind of a tactical feedback on headphones. Like if you have the Apple AirPod Pro, you can actually literally go up and down to the Ray-Bans, Meta glasses. You can go up and down. So this is kind of tactical feedback, meaning that you just scroll with your finger and then it lowers or highes the volume. And if you click on it, it can stop or start the music. Buttons already kind of do that. Then Will Garcia is saying, but will the Tesla be able to control us? Dun, dun, dun. Well, this is possible. I mean, if they become AIs and all of that, I mean, I don't know. We're not talking about AI sentient and all things, but it could. It could. In a way, it could.
Well, Garcia got something about, bottle for distraction, but if the car drives itself.
Okay, so I like buttons better. No need to take your eyes off the road. It's why so many cars put media control button on the steering wheel. Yes, it's true that even Tesla, my Tesla Model X 2016 has some scroll buttons on the steering wheel so that you can change the song or do things like that, so you don't have to go on this big screen. But again, right now where we're at with like cars and self-driving and just like some self-driving features, you will be able to take your eyes off of the road very, very soon. I mean, soon you won't not be driving your car. The car's just gonna drive itself in that way. So this is, yes, it was really good at the beginning because, well, you had the buttons, you could just kind of feel it and look at the road and then turn it.
That's what she said.
That's what she said. But then afterwards, well, you have the screens. Now the screens, if you're not parked, don't necessarily allow you to do like everything too. You need to be conscious of that. But yes, the screen you will need to look at. This is the thing. A screen is visual. A button is more tactical in that sense. Oh, this is so interesting of a subject. Okay, come on, people. Give me more, because I'm done with my cue cards. Yeah, so you have a whole bunch more time to talk about whatever you want about buttons right here, right now. Bam! I'm Piper, and you're listening to While You Wait, the podcast that brings you awesome entertainment on electric vehicles and, well, anything related to vehicles in general, like screens that are gaining way more popularity in our vehicles, all our vehicles, really. Like even the dashboard, we don't really have a speedometer anymore in that sense with the literal aiguille. You just have a number there. It controls everything. Everything is on the screen. I mean, if your screen dies, the whole thing dies in that sense. Before, you had this... what's an aiguille? Oh, the needle. So the needle of your speedometer would break, but then that's the only needle that would break. You could still, well, have access to maybe like the actual RPM.
I think a speedometer is the same price, a mechanical one, as a screen. That is large.
You think it would be the same price? Like a speedometer analog versus
Imagine you break your
screen?
Porsche speedometer.
Oh, imagine you break your Porsche's speedometer.
The screen.
You would rather have the screen.
I'm sure this piece of mechanical.
This piece of mechanical is expensive. It wouldn't make sense that it's expensive.
Yeah, it would.
Because, well, it has to read data.
And you know, the lettering.
Yeah, the lettering, the coloring too. You know, it had like lights behind them,
Yeah.
so you can see at night in that sense.
Pretty expensive.
It has to be pretty expensive. I don't know how much it is, but it has to be pretty expensive. Okay, come on, people. Tell us more about screens and buttons. Which one do you prefer? Why do you prefer them? And what do you think are the best implementations for both? Max Power says, well, I don't know if this is related, but you can use voice command on almost everything now with Siri and Alexa. Exactly. So we are at screens and button, but very soon we'll be having a debate on screens versus voice activation.
Or put some more volume.
Exactly.
You can also
And the car already does it. You can already talk to your vehicle. I mean, some vehicles. So that being said, you can speech to text. You can just tell it what to write and it's going to send a text message to someone. The car already does that. So the screen versus button is really something that is happening right now, but it's almost already dying in that sense. Totally agree with you, Max. And if we do have this voice command coming up, plus we're going to have these special features like full self-driving, I mean, maybe we won't even need to get into that transition phase. It's just going to go from one to the other and it's going to be over. The screen would have been like a really, really tiny sliver of time compared to the buttons and the voice activation in that sense. But I have to say that voice activation, you still need to say it. You need to phrase it, which sometimes a button is faster. Still today, or a screen is more convenient. Sometimes Siri or Alexa, they don't grasp it that fast. And
with AI.
but with AI, I do believe that we will get there to that type of voice activation that's going to be way faster than what we had so far. Because so far, sometimes I ask Siri to play music, and then I just do it myself.
Ricken says something. What kind of
Yes.
car you got?
Michael Riken, I use voice command to navigate and zoom in or out on the map. Okay, Michael, what type of vehicle do you have? This is to tell us what make and model is it, because some people might want to go more towards voice activation, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, okay, except for the mute people, but those are very, very little tiny population. So screens versus buttons, and now versus actual. Oh, so Michael has the Model S 2014, and he uses voice command to navigate and zoom in and out of the map. So I need to test this out with my Tesla Model X.
Because we have
See how, yeah, everybody has that nowadays. We just need to test it out and see how we can push the limits of voice activation in that way. Because,
that's an old one.
well, yeah, that's one of the first ones pretty much, huh? 2014.
Yeah, free gas. Free
Yeah, Michael, do you still have free electricity on your Model S?
How many kilometers have you?
Yeah, and how many kilometers did you do? Because in 2014, that's 10 years old. That's a 10-year-old car. I mean, that's where we're at with Tesla now. Teslas can be like 10 years old. This is so interesting. I know I bought mine used and it's a 2016, so I wasn't its first owner, but it's okay. She married me, so it's fine. I'm Piper and you're listening to While You Wait. We are talking about screens versus buttons and now versus voice command. So do you think that voice command would definitely be the new screen/button, or do you think it's going to be something else? Like the fact that the car is going to be autonomous will make it even useless to have voice command. But again, you still need to command some things in the car. There's still some features that you will need to have, unless your car really decides for you. Like, oh, you are at this body temperature, and now I want you to be at this body temperature, so I will make sure climate is at that body temperature. Imagine how crazy that would be if it could really tell. Okay, Electric Brian says, to get ready to charge your Tesla, you can say open the charge port, or open charge port, or open butthole.
Is that true? Is that
We need to test it out. I know there's a lot.
Brian?
Electric Brian, we're gonna test it out. I know there's a lot of Easter eggs in the Teslas because, well, Elon Musk and probably the crazy team of engineers behind them. Okay, so I'm gonna need to test that. That's another thing though. With like the charge port and things like that. Yeah, all of these activations for charge ports, those are all in your screen. So there's not a button. You just like click on your screen and then open charge port, or you can push it. If you're outside and the gun is near you, like the plug, you can just push it. Hey, Midnight Smoke, so Midnight Smoke says, I prefer buttons. I like the illusion of being in control. So for you, a screen, that's what she said, would be not being in control. Is that because of the software behind the screen?
It feels more controllable.
Yeah, you do feel more in control, but it's like it's an extension of you. You can feel it. It's fun to touch buttons. When I went at Space Kennedy Center, I mean, I touched all the buttons over there. There is so many buttons. I mean, but maybe that's the thing. Maybe like space shuttles and planes still need a lot of buttons so that people can interact fast. Like having an actual screen would be too complicated in that way. Or if they had a huge screen, well, maybe that could be done in a way like, you know, in Iron Man. So you would touch the button, but on the screen. But still, I don't know. Like, do planes have screens right now? Or they're still at buttons? And even like NASA, call me. NASA, are you with buttons, screens? What are you using right now? Because again, there's different applications for different, well, technologies. A button is a type of technology, and then the screen is another type of technology. So maybe a button would be better in some circumstances, whereas a screen would be better in other circumstances. Let's say like for an iPhone, definitely a screen is better because you have all these applications, all these things you want to put in. I mean, imagine the amount of little buttons we would have. That would be way too much. There's no way I could click on all of that and still have a screen on my phone to watch all of the stuff that I have on there. So it's more numerical. It's more like digital. Sorry, it's way more digital than a button. To have buttons is a lot more, yes, control, like Midnight Smoke said, and it's touching. It's touching, and I know like some people that do music prefer to have the buttons there to control their LA2A or compressors, things like that, because you can hear and you can touch the button. Whereas if you're just scrolling on something that is not physical, you can hear less in a way because you're looking at the computer instead of just hearing what's happening. When you turn a button, usually you can be more focused on the hearing and the hearing, let's call it like that, the hearing. But when you're visually looking at something, usually it can, impede on your sense of hearing in that way. Midnight Smoke says, I think it is the tactical feeling of pushing the button and turning the dial. Oh, okay. So that would make you feel more like you're in control because you're really pushing, turning, so you know where it's at, when it's at, and you can sense it. Yeah, reassuring. It's reassuring. You're physically touching something and you're controlling this one thing. When it's a screen, it's 2D, and so you're turning something, you're pushing something, but unless it gives you that feedback, you don't know. You don't know if you're touching at the right place. You have no idea where you're touching. If you close your eyes, you could definitely be not touching the right spot. So you could definitely be opening your flashers.
To be over with eye tracking like that.
Yeah, with eye tracking.
You need to be precise. You look where it looks.
Exactly.
They're gonna cure that.
It's gonna become better because if they do implement eye tracking, meaning the button is just gonna go where you're gonna look at it, and then it's gonna pop up and you're gonna click on it. You'll never miss the button in that way. Just like with the Vision Pro. What they're doing. Rob8618 says, what about triggers? What do you mean triggers? Like pushing a button? Just a push? Well, that could definitely be a button too. A button can be turned, but it can also be pushed in that way. Just like the hazard button, that's kind of a trigger. You push it and it activates.
You have just one button to push, and where you look, you click. It's like Apple Vision, so you just need one physical button.
Yeah. A bit like a joystick. So you would have this one physical button that you click, push, turn, and then the rest would be your eyes controlling where you look, and where you look would pop up that. Then you just need to click. Like the Vision Pro is really doing it in that way. You look and then you use your fingers to click, so to grab and to open in that way, or to scroll. Max Power says, do you like switches? Of course, switches are amazing, but I don't really see their utility in a vehicle. Like a switch in a vehicle, and we're talking like vehicles, I'm not talking a tank. But usually a switch is more for something that would really need to be on and off. I mean, we kind of have switches in a car, like in the olden cars. If you take, well, your fog lights and things like that, usually you need to turn. So that could have been a switch. Maybe in the olden days it was sort of a switch. You would just like turn it on in that sense. But a switch is on and off, so it doesn't roll. Now, a button, or most of the buttons in the cars, well, from my generation, you would have kind of this off click. Then if you turn, it goes on, and then it starts controlling the thing. Or you could push it to on and off it too. So either it would be like turned to click on and off, or it would be pushed to turn on and off. And then you would have control over the amount by rolling it from left to right, right to left, in that sense. So a switch is just like on and off. There's no more control than that. Even a button has more control. A button has like these on and off plus the quantity you're releasing in that way. Now a trigger would just be a pull. So a trigger would be on and off too, just like a switch. It's just like you push it and then it's triggered. A bit like like a start engine. So if your car does not have automatic start when the fob is inside of it, you need to click that on button, and then that's on. That's kind of like a trigger. It opens the car, and it does nothing else but to shut it off afterwards. So I think that the trigger and the switch, well, they need polar opposites, right? It's like on off in that way. A button can be volume on and off, but then there's this huge spectrum in between, which a switch does not have, or trigger does not have. It's just on and off in that way. But screens allow for all of that. They allow for the on and off. They allow for the 50 Shades of Grey. they just do all of that all in one thing. This is super interesting. Yeah, we're getting like deeper into the buttons and the switch. So first it was screens versus buttons, and now we're really doing all of the other things that could exist. I mean, voice command, maybe later, mind command would be way better with something like the Neuralink. So your car would just know that you're cold, and it would put the heat to your preference. Or the car would just know that this is too loud for you because it can detect that you're feeling uneasy, and then it would do that. Max Power says your key fob has buttons. Yes, my key fob has buttons, but the thing is, it literally opens the car on its own. The buttons are there only to open the doors and the trunk and the front, if you want to, but you don't have to use them like that. So the key fob has a battery in it, and then as soon as I get close to the car, it unlocks the doors. That it does. And then when you get in the car, it kind of starts the car, meaning that it is kind of open. Then if you want to drive the car, you need to press the brake pedal and put it in drive. So the car is off, but it's on. I know, it's a bit like if you... As soon as I get in my Tesla Model X with my fob, it's a bit like if the car is already on. It's like if the key's in the ignition and it is turned totally. Not just the radio, we're not talking just the radio, we're talking like totally the motor is running. Like it's doing that. Now all I have to do is press the brake and we'll put it in the gear. If you're not seeing me, I'm not using gear lightly here because it's an electric vehicle. But and put it in the gear I want. So drive, reverse, it's already in park. It's kind of already in park.
I think the price of cars would go lower just because of that.
So the price of cars would go lower because of screens?
No, yeah, exactly, because less mechanical things to build.
A lot less mechanical things, a lot less wiring. It's software. It's just software. Meaning, of course, you're going to need engineers, you're going to need coders and things like that, but it's just software.
Yeah, because you don't need that much.
No.
The screen do the job.
You just need the screen, and that does it.
Like the old, like you got the speed, the
RPM, speedometer, RPM,
a
yeah.
lot of money each of them.
Yeah, each of them need to be wired to the right place.
But now it's just a screen.
Now it's just a screen. You still need to have these sensors that capture this, of course. There's still some sort of wiring that's happening, but again, sensors can be kind of Bluetooth. You can just plug a sensor there and then can communicate with like the rest of your car, I'm guessing, without needing to be literally like connected in that way. You probably don't need this. There must be very different wiring.
I'm gonna check for RPM meter. How much?
Oh, okay. How much is the RPM meter? We're talking screens versus button. I am Piper, and this is Two Girls, One Electric Car, the podcast version of us, which is called While You Wait. Because while you wait to charge your electric vehicle, we entertain you for an hour and a half. Because yes, some electric vehicles still take an hour and a half to charge, just like my Tesla Model X. To get it to full 100% charging, yeah, it takes an hour and a half. But it's very rare that I have to do that. Though when I do, I listen to While You Wait, the podcast. You can also listen to the podcast while you're cooking, doing laundry, on a Sunday. It doesn't matter. As long as you want to enjoy something different, get educated, and well, have a little bit of fun with us. So come on, leave a comment and make sure that you tell us what you want to discuss in the next podcast. We're open to all subjects that are related to electric vehicles.
Same
Yes.
Price.
What's the...
RPM, $85.
Yeah?
And a 70-inch screen, $66.
Okay, so the RPM meter in the analog format or the RPM meter in the digital format, meaning a screen is kind of the same amount of money. But that being said, when you add up all these screens into one big screen...
only do RPM.
Exactly, that only does RPM.
I need the speedometer.
Yeah, because now you're going to need a speedometer and you're going to need all these other things when you could just buy a big screen.
The fuel.
Yeah, the fuel meter. All of these things can be replaced by one big screen.
Less expensive.
It's probably less expensive to have like this one big screen than to have all of these analog, like speedometer, gas tank meter, and all of these things. Michael Riken says, I like the screen for the most things, but I don't want to search for turn signal on a screen Model 3. Yeah, I know that like the Model 3 has a lot more features in its screen. Like everything is done on screen. There's like almost no buttons. So like Michael is saying, the turn signal is on the screen. I'm not sure. I think just on the screen. They put a lot of stuff on the screen. But is there a quick command on the steering wheel for that? Because I feel like this is intense. We're Googling it right now. Thank you for staying tuned in. And then Max Power says, but that was one of the tactics for car salesmen to try to sell you a special insurance because they will tell you AI, the computer is very expensive to replace. Interesting. Well, of course, AIs and like computer screens and all that were new, but now again, the Teslas all have screens in them. Well, maybe not the Roadster, I don't know that one, but all the other ones. And they date back from 15 years ago. And even like I had a Mercedes 2012 and that one had a screen in it. It was not really like, it was not great tactical, but you can blow it up, to see the GPS and all that. So that kind of worked. Now, does the Model 3 have...
I think there's buttons.
Okay, you think there's buttons. Michael, you need to precise more. So Michael said yes, but yes to what? Yes to what? This is a podcast. We need to kind of have a little bit more details. Message retracted. I like the screen for the most things, but I don't want to search for the turn signal on the screen of my Model 3. So that still needs to be verified.
It's in the steering.
In the steering wheel?
It's not the click.
Oh, okay. You don't have the lever.
Yeah.
So the turn signal can be on the steering wheel. It is on the steering wheel.
It's not on the...
So there's no turn signal like before on the lever. It's only on the actual steering wheel. Well, that's quite interesting. Okay.
Not like that anymore.
No, it's not like that anymore. It's like that. Okay, perfect. Great. Screen versus buttons. Now, buttons, an older technology. It was there before. And so, well... it's been kind of dying. Why has it been dying? Because we invented screens. And screens make it possible for us to put more things in one place. Plus, we can adjust them however we want. It kind of declutters. It takes a lot less real estate, let's call it like that, in your car or in anything else. And, well, you can personalize it however you want. The thing is, well, screens are 2D, meaning they're kind of tactical, but not as tactical as buttons. Buttons allow you to feel and can be a lot more reassuring for a lot of people in the live comment section from what we've heard. Now, are buttons switches, triggers, all of that? Yes, kinda, A screen, though, has all of these extra things you can put in it. A screen is only software, meaning that software you can add on top however much you want. But some people feel a bit less comfortable with a screen because that will not allow them to literally, push some buttons. They prefer buttons in that sense. But what is going to happen? What is going to happen later? Are we going to have voice command because that's already a thing? Or are we going to go to complete mind control? Or maybe even we're going to get to the point where it just drives itself. So we don't need to do anything except for control temperature and entertainment in our vehicles. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much to everybody who tuned in. Don't forget that this podcast is called While You Wait. I'm your host, Piper, and you can find the podcast on our channel, Two Girls, One Electric Car, whenever you want, wherever you want. It is available. Listen or watch. Both are perfect with us. Have a wonderful day. Definitely like screen. Have you ever experienced a black screen? Yeah, definitely happens to everybody. I mean, you push the button and then it doesn't work, and this is called the black screen of death, right? Because there's nothing there. Then you don't know what you did wrong. It's very scary. But well, that happens,